All right, folks, this is kind of a feel-good story. This will lift your spirits. ADL faces Wikipedia ban over reliability concerns on Israel and anti-Semitism. This reported by Haaretz. ADL no longer appears to adhere to a serious, mainstream, and intellectually cogent definition of
Oh,
anti-Semitism,
you think?
wrote an editor whose request for a discussion about the ADL ultimately led to the ban. So Wikipedia's editors have voted to declare the Anti-Defamation League generally unreliable on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, adding it to a list of banned and partially banned sources. An overwhelming majority of editors involved in the debate about the ADL also voted to deem the organization unreliable on the topic of anti-Semitism, its core focus. A formal declaration on that count is expected next. The decision about Israel-related citations made last week means that one of the most prominent and long-standing Jewish advocacy groups in the United States, and one historically seen as the leading U.S. authority on anti-Semitism, is now grouped together with, I love this list here, National Enquirer, Newsmax, and Occupy Democrats as a source of propaganda or misinformation in the eyes of the online encyclopedia. Moreover, in a near consensus, dozens of Wikipedia editors involved in the discussion said they believe the ADL should not be cited for factual information on anti-Semitism as well because it acts primarily as a pro-Israel organization and tends to label legitimate criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism. Too bad they couldn't have moderated that debate the other day. ADL no longer appears to adhere to a serious, mainstream, and intellectually cogent definition of anti-Semitism, but has instead given in to the shameless politicization of the very subject that it was originally esteemed for being reliable on, wrote an editor known as...
And whether it ever deserved that esteem is an open question as well.
Sure, of course.
They always tended to traffic in that, but post October 7th, they literally, as they mentioned, changed their standards. So it's just not tenable to use them as a source.
Exactly. Wrote an editor known as Elskandar323, whose request for a discussion about the ADL ultimately led to the ban. In a written statement, the ADL said the decision by Wikipedia was the result of a campaign to delegitimize the ADL, and that editors opposing the ban provided point-by-point refutations grounded in factual citations to every claim made, but apparently facts no longer matter. Yeah. Wikipedia's volunteer editors have debated the reliability of the ADL for years as the group has come under criticism off of the platform from both the left and the right, but concerns coalesced into a new discussion about banning the group as a source in April, which was followed by months of discussion featuring hundreds of comments from dozens of editors. A relatively small minority of editors sought to defend the ADL, arguing that the organization's statistics and analysis are widely cited, by many news outlets that are themselves trusted by Wikipedia. The defender said critics of the group managed to show that the ADL may be biased or partisan, but not that it publishes false information.
All right, so this is a really common tactic to refer back to a biased source as proof that your source is not biased.
Right.
Oh, really? They use ADL. And for example, the Atlantic article that we ripped apart about the passing of the golden age of Judaism literally said the ADL has recorded, I can't remember what the percentage was, 50% increase of anti-Semitic incidents, and then mentions as an aside, and although the ADL has changed its definition of anti-Semitism to include anti-Zionism,
right?
Oh, that's small matter.
Right.
So is that the source that you still use, the Atlantic, that you're referring to as evidence that the ADL is still reliable? I'm sure that's what that is. Oh, what? Morning Joe?
Right.
Morning Joe finds them reliable? MSNBC, NBC?
Right. Exactly. It becomes this like circular thing. We can't call them unreliable because NBC is reliable and they cite the ADL.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's NBC's problem, not yours. Right. Editors supporting the ban focused on the ADL's conduct following October 7th, Israel's subsequent war with Hamas, and the wave of pro-Palestinian demonstrations on college campuses. Many editors said that the organization had undermined its credibility by altering how it categorizes anti-Semitic incidents. Its new methodology included many pro-Palestinian protests in its annual audit of anti-Semitism, which reported a large spike over the previous year. Also cited were a series of controversial statements by ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt, who has claimed student protests were Iranian proxies, compared the keffiyeh headscarf to the swastika, praised Elon Musk after he promoted an anti-Semitic post on his social media platform X, and compared anti-Zionism to white supremacy. Editors pointed to news reporting about a staff revolt in January against Greenblatt's statements. The two sides lingered on a controversial definition of anti-Semitism that the ADL embraces. Authored by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA, as it's called, definition has been endorsed by hundreds of universities, companies, and local governments, as well as the U.S. House of Representatives. But the definition has also proven contentious with critics who say the definition is too broad and could be used to stifle pro-Palestinian speech. Many of the critiques from the Wikipedia editors are things people on the left have been saying for years, according to Dov Waxman, director for the Center for Israel Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles. On the left, the ADL is often dismissed and regarded as a bad actor or propaganda outfit, Waxman said. But if that starts to move beyond just the left and Wikipedia and other sources, and the journalists start ignoring ADL's data, it becomes a real issue for Jewish Americans who are understandably concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism. By deeming the ADL generally unreliable, Wikipedia is telling users that the source should normally not be used and should never be used for information about a living person. Wikipedia is not poised to ban the ADL outright. Enough editors have argued that some aspects of the ADL's work, such as its database of hate symbols, should still be considered an acceptable source. Myra Sukharoff, a professor of political science at Carleton University, said Wikipedia's decision represents a major opportunity to reflect on why the ADL is facing scrutiny and rethink communal approaches for fighting anti-Semitism. This is a sign that the Jewish community needs better institutions, he said. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. But that is a good sign. That's some good news there. That they're being called out by a source as authoritative as Wikipedia, which we use for all our segments. We frequent that website.
What is Destiny going to do now?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's going to need his whole library, right? All those folders of printed Wikipedia articles. He's going to have to repurpose them somehow.
They're all moot now.
Yeah.
Well, this is as dark as things might seem and as impossible as things might seem right now. And certainly, I'm not saying it's worth the suffering or the lives that this is costing, but I do believe it's the end of Israel as we've known it. I've been saying that throughout all of this. More and more, the institutions that Israel relies upon to push its Hasbara are collapsing and losing credibility in the eyes of the public. And again, at the end of this, however it ends up, you're going to see more and more countries refusing to maintain diplomatic relations with Israel, more countries refusing to trade with Israel. Forget about tourism as a source of income other than from the most devout Zionist Jews and Zionist Christians. They're never going to recover from this if they're able to survive it at all.
Yeah, no, and this is just one more thing. You know, who'd have thought that we would see the day where this kind of action is taken against the ADL? Now, you could say, well, it's an online encyclopedia. Is this really a major thing? Well, it's more significant than I thought I would see. If you asked me, would the ADL ever be discredited in this way, the way it deserved to be a long time ago? I agree with Russell on that. I would have said no, right? But good on them for doing that. It is an important thing to point out. Because that's what undergirds the entire debate. That's why that monk debate went as viral as it did. Because the undercurrent of this entire debate is, are we allowed to have this debate, or does that make us bigots for even having the debate at all? Right? And the ADL is, public enemy number one in terms of perpetrating that obscene lie that poisons the entire conversation. That to even question Israel or Israel's policies is to engage in anti-Semitism.
Yes. And in the end, things are changing. I do believe people like Dana Bash and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the segment that they did the other day, I think they are going to have to answer for that. Social narratives can change. Society can change. Perspectives can change. I do believe a lot of these people are not going to be able to function in their positions once that narrative does change. And I think when you see things like this, you're seeing that future coming into being.
Yes.
Please clap.